Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in to my super chat. Thank you. Before we get into the WHO, one thing is certain: Amy Klobuchar will not be vice president for Clinton, who will be nominee. Hillary Clinton's going to be nominee. It ain't going to be Biden. And Amy Klobuchar, Democrat, Minneapolis mayor, Democrat, Minneapolis governor, Democrat, Minnesota's governor, Democrat, Minnesota's two senators, Democrats. Last time Minnesota voted Republican, let's just see really quickly. So Biden's comments the other day have not aged well at all. But really quickly, so 270 to win. I just want to see this. 270 to win Minnesota. I want to know what the Democrats have done for their most important demographic. Not since 1972, ladies and gentlemen. This is very important, and it's going on with what's taken place. Okay. What happened to George Floyd and Eric Garner happened in two Democratic machines, in cities that were Democratic machines, in states that were Democratic machines. You know that since 1972, people, Minnesota has not voted. And you have Keith Ellison, by the way, who's Attorney General. When you're Attorney General, you couldn't, you couldn't revamp law enforcement tactics to outlaw this behavior. You cannot put your knee or your foot on somebody's neck when they're asking to breathe. You cannot do this. This is beyond politics. This has to do with the Constitution. This has to do with, obviously, civil rights, but also the Bill of Rights, which is the cornerstone of civil rights. You cannot do that. Since 1972, Minnesota has voted Democrat. Minnesota has voted Democrat since 1972. So that's important to remember, ladies and gentlemen. I can get into the whole. I've told you, I feel that George Floyd and Eric Garner were murdered. And I wrote about Eric Garner in the Huffington Post. What happened to him in New York City. Democrat mayor, Democrat governor. It was Cuomo, de Blasio. I believe it was Schumer and Gillibrand also. Well, Schumer I know. Gillibrand I believe it was also. So you have to ask yourself, why are these things taking place it could take place anywhere, but in places that are Democratic machines. Why? Why in Democratic machines? Why? You have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where Amy Klobuchar is not going to be oh no, and this charade that she dropped out even before Minnesota and Super Tuesday. So that already is bizarre. But President Trump is doing the right thing. First of all, I don't see a point to NATO because we don't need to coordinate our military endeavors or interventions, which we shouldn't have any. We don't need to coordinate tactics or military objectives with other countries anymore, unless it's a joint unless it's a joint military exercise with, for example, South Korea or another country that we want. We want a specific. We're doing something pertaining to a specific objective. NATO is a fossil, a Cold War relic. There is no more Warsaw Pact, so why do you need NATO? Russia has the 12th ranked economy in the world. They're not going to invade. There are no Soviet bloc nations. They're not going to invade any country. Bordering country maybe, but it was a former Soviet bloc. But that's a whole other story. They're not going to invade European countries or Western Europe or even Eastern Europe. They're not going to invade any European nation. So there's no need for, and there's no Warsaw Pact. There are no Soviet bloc nations. You don't need NATO. I don't know what the allure is other than to justify when we intervened in Libya, they have not had peace since 2011. That was one of the worst foreign policy debacles, catastrophes in American history. All the mayhem and chaos in that country can be linked right back to Madam Secretary's decision. Actually, it was Madam Secretary who convinced Biden and President Obama, which should tell you something about Biden and President Obama. When you cannot see the error in your Secretary of State, because I think whether this is apocryphal or not, I'm not sure, but it's been reported that we saw that whole thing was the brainchild of Madam Secretary's devious and all-knowing cranium. Brain. So that was... But anyway, that's another story, okay? The World Health Organization... The issue with the WHO is that I don't understand in 2020, and Luke St. Martin, Eric H526, thank you, Eric H526, that's my article in the Huffington Post. Eric Garner's only crime was indignation. He should be alive today. Thank you, Eric H526, Luke St. Martin, thank you. But I don't understand why... And Jimmy Lamour, thank you so very much, Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, very kind of you. I don't understand why we need a multinational or a non-governmental organization to influence our domestic policies, especially pertaining to issues like health. And we're supposed to have this amazing... intelligence apparatus. It's just this amazing intelligence apparatus. This intelligence apparatus that's just amazing. Where we have to revere the intelligence community, so we can't... There's no intelligence on pandemics. We desperately need... Is that how it works? We desperately need another country, another organization to give us all the information on pandemics around the world. We can't... we don't have enough information just from our intelligence agencies, but let's say the rebuttal is, well, our intelligence agencies have nothing to do with that. Well, then why rely on an organization that perhaps has multiple allegiances or numerous allegiances? Why rely on that type of organization? And if you have foreign policy, here's an article from Foreign Policy: How WHO Became China's Coronavirus Accomplice. Beijing is pushing to become a public health superpower and quickly found a willing international partner. This is foreign policy. I don't believe Foreign Policy, the publication, is that big of a fan of President Trump. Beijing is pushing to become a public health superpower. So, Trump cuts ties with World Health Organization amid pandemic. So, they say amid pandemic. This is a pandemic that the WHO, you can go, and there were a litany of things they did wrong. But I don't understand why we have to coordinate the CDC should be enough, and the CDC made mistakes. If you want to share information, if you want to ask the WHO, well, he's removed. He's removed. We're no longer members, or he's officially going to. I'm not 100% sure if it's officially taken place. I think it's going to eventually take place that we're out of there. But here, while the pandemic is changing the world, China is trying to do the same. Already a serious strategic rival of the United States with considerable international clout, it's now moving into new field health. So I don't want a Cold War with China. This is something I do not want. I don't want that. And there was one thing that President Trump did that I disagreed with. Jimmy Lamore. So how is Trump going to get 8 years like FDR did? Well, he's only going to go 2 terms. FDR went, 4 terms, right? But right now, the Democratic Party, Jimmy, is pretty much done. The Democratic Party is pretty much done. People know exactly what it's about. But Beijing succeeded from the start in steering the World Health Organization, which both receives funding from China and is dependent on the regime's Communist Party on many levels. There were mistakes that the WHO made. But the issue is that we developed our policies in part based on what a non-governmental organization advised. This should never be the case. We should never devise policy, domestic policy, or international policy, or foreign policy, on what an NGO, on what a non-governmental organization feels is best for the world. They're not. The WHO is different from NATO. We run NATO. We've always run NATO. NATO is a way for us to make mistakes in terms of regime change and then say, well, just like President Obama did. Well, it was a NATO intervention. Angela Goodwin, happy Shavua. Thank you. It's really, oh, wow. Breathalyzer test is getting to market in weeks. Wow. Thank you. That's interesting. Very interesting. Angela Goodwin, thank you. That would be amazing. And you figure, the whole thing with the masks, the breathalyzer, that would make sense. Or if you have to cough in it, or I don't know what you would do. Thank you, Angela Goodwin. Thank you. But the thing is, the United States should develop policies, whether it's for a pandemic or whether it's a military endeavor or to counter a pandemic, from within its own officials or from within information derived from its own government and officials and experts, quote unquote. So you have all of these this is what the media does. Old School Dad Man, another crazy week. HA, appreciate the hard work, not getting any easier. Old School Dad Man, thank you. Old School Dad Man, thank you. It's Angela Goodwin. Old School Dad Man, thank you so very much. Well, you have to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Diane. Good morning. You have to ask yourself, Old School Dad Man, Angela Goodwin. I mean, on every major issue, when you talk about what's taking place with George Floyd, or you're talking about the pandemic, mainly, look, with what took place in the horrific tragedy, horrific in Minneapolis. This is a Democratic run. This is a Democratic-run city. Now, this could happen in any city, but it's been happening in Democratic-run cities in 2020, 2016, 2015. And you know, it's unbelievable that Democrats haven't. They're so into passing laws and they're so into government intervention. And well, then why didn't you pass a law after Eric Garner? Why didn't you push for a law? Democrats who have the audacity to say, and I understand people are going, Republicans are just as bad. No, they're not. Republicans, at least, were at the forefront of prison reform and criminal justice reform. President Trump signed criminal justice reform. So, and they're not as bad as Democrats. Not nearly as bad because not only has President Trump signed prison reform, but he's not the one saying you are not if you don't vote. You ain't. I don't even want to say the phrase this evening because it's so disrespectful and so narcissistic from Biden. But Biden's phrase did not age well. Biden makes that phrase, and then a couple days later, you have a man who loses his life in a Democratic-run state and city. These are the wonderful liberals. These are the beautiful, amazing liberals who stand for truth and justice. You have a mayor who's a hardcore Democrat who looks like Justin Trudeau and talks like Justin Trudeau. You have Amy Klobuchar who did nothing. You have Keith Ellison what you mean to tell me Keith Ellison as Attorney General for over 2 years now? Or around 2 years, couldn't have stated, okay, are there any tactics that are against the law? So now the officers being charged with murder, I believe, which should happen. But so what he did was against the law, but apparently it's done all the time. So don't you, if you're a Democratic mayor and state and you have senators and a governor, you don't want to make sure that this is not done, that this is not, police procedure. So Valerie Rogers, he knows exactly what he is doing. Trust him. I support President Trump, but not blindly. I mean, you can't blindly support anyone. I think that it's going to be interesting what takes place, and it's going to be interesting what Democrats say. No, we have to stay in the WHO. They made a whole bunch of mistakes linked to their funding. So they have funding from certain countries, and they were This is even in the Atlantic. Why the World Health Organization failed. The world, and then Market Watch. The World Health Organization must stop covering up China's mistakes. So, see, I don't understand the banning of entry of certain groups of students from China. I don't understand that, other than it's part of a tough a diplomatic push. Issuing the proclamation on Friday, Trump, and so I disagree with the president on this. Trump and China said China is engaged in a wide-ranging and heavily sourced campaign to acquire sensitive U.S. technologies. Okay, then that's the reason. I kind of figured that, but Chinese students and researchers having ties with... So researchers I would understand. Students I don't understand. But researchers I would understand that could possibly gain sensitive information. The students I disagree with. The president should allow students to come in. But... so then the New York Times, see, it's not one thing or another. Democrats need to make... You can critique President Trump without distorting the reality of what's taking place. New York Times blaming China for pandemic. Trump says U.S. will leave the WHO. Well, it originated in one country. Okay, fine. I don't think that anyone would do anything on purpose because it hurt them. It cost lives there also. The issue is that you don't, if you have a non-governmental organization like the WHO that gets funding from other countries and they're beholden to other countries, either just as much or more so than the United States of America, then why would you listen to them in terms of domestic policy? Democrats are so eager to set up Trump based on the information of other people, and then they say, well, you can't get election interference. So you're gonna. What was Alexander Downer? That was election interference from a foreign source. Oh, it was different. It was an official FBI investigation. No, it wasn't. It was an investigation in name only. It was a setup. They utilized the United States government. See, Democrats have a buffet. They pick and choose what they want. They pick and choose what they agree with, what they want, depending on their needs for the moment. So depending on their needs for the moment, let's see. Flynn Kislyak call transcripts released, revealing fateful talks over Russian actions. Flynn transcripts confirm talk of sanctions with so what, though? Transcripts of calls between Michael Flynn and former... This is the interesting thing. Flynn transcripts show the incoming Trump administration colluding with Russia against the government. So this is not true. This is not an accurate statement. Just in, the newly released Flynn transcripts show how Trump's first national security advisor betrayed the United States. How is it a betrayal to reverse foreign policy? It's not what he said in those calls, but what he didn't. Oh, okay. This is from. We don't even have to get into who this is from. It's not what he said in those calls, but what he didn't. Ah, okay. That pretty much says exactly what the Democratic Party is all about. It's not what anyone says, it's what they didn't. So let's analyze and evaluate. We already knew that he wanted to reverse foreign policy. We don't need... Okay, it's not a betrayal of the United States. Okay, if it wasn't a betrayal to allow 20% of U.S. uranium capacity... 20% of U.S. uranium capacity... How is that not a betrayal to not veto the sale? So then what they do is the repeated incorrect claim that Russia obtained 20% of our uranium. Then they focus on capacity, not the actual uranium capacity, meaning, production in the future. The facts: the original 20% comes from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, one of the agencies that approved the deal in 2010. So if all the agencies under President Obama's administration approve the deal, that's even worse. So you have a whole bunch of people turning a blind eye to a betrayal of our nation. This is a Washington Post article. It states that as of 2010, the licenses represent approximately 20% of the current licensed uranium in situ recovery production capacity in the United States. But that does not mean 20% of U.S. uranium reserves. I don't care if it's 1%. Why? The nuance and the context, my God. In situ recovery is one of two ways to obtain uranium from underground. And then, of course, they go into the resulting liquid is then pumped back, dried, so it becomes yellow cake and placed in 55-gallon drums before it's taken to a uranium conversion facility for eventual use in nuclear power reactors. By the way, yellow cake was shipped out of the country. This is per the New York Times article. Uranium One has already sold some U.S. assets and may be looking to unload more. They still have U.S. assets. That's the point. That's because the U.S. holdings were incidental to the Rosatom purchase of Uranium One. They were incidental, don't you know? It does, but the fact is they were part of the Rosatom purchase, which is Putin, which means that Putin purchased U.S. holdings. Is this difficult to understand? Apparently it is. Production capacity is one thing, but the reality is actual production. Okay, so they eventually say it's a lot less than 20%. Who cares if it's 5%? What does it even matter? The Pinocchio test. 4 Pinocchios! Given that uranium production is only 2% of an already small U.S. total production, not 20%, the overwrought claims that Clinton gave away 20% are simply absurd. No, it's absurd that you would be okay with even 2% of production capacity or production. You gave 2%. And if you want to say 2 or 1% to Putin, how is that better or less egregious than a Flynn call where he's trying to lessen tensions? He's trying to reduce tensions. He has every right to reverse U.S. foreign policy, which is what President Obama did. This is hilarious. These are the liberals, by the way. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. These are the liberals. These are the wonderful liberals. And then they say, it's debunked. She didn't give away 20%. No, money went into the Clinton Foundation. And then miraculously, President Obama did not veto the sale of either 1% or 2% or 20% of U.S. production capacity of uranium. Whatever percentage, if it's above 0%, it's a bad thing. But they don't get that. To them, it's like, well, it's just a commodity. You can build something with it. It's just like pork bellies. What's the problem? So they're completely Michael Flynn did nothing wrong. It was not even illegal. They did not, ladies and gentlemen. They did not, ladies and gentlemen. They absolutely did not. They absolutely did not. Find anything. They didn't find anything that he did illegal within. They already had the transcripts since the moment the phone call happened. This isn't like this cloak and dagger type thing. They already had exactly what Michael Flynn stated, okay? Valerie Rogers, the press is doing things behind the scenes. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. Thanks, Eric H526. Thank you. So they already had the transcripts. So you have a whole bunch of things taking place. But see, again, they're trying to desperately. Flynn transcripts confirm talks with sanctions. We already knew. Transcripts of calls between Michael Flynn and former ambassador released. We already knew he was trying to reverse U.S. foreign policy. So what? He wasn't a private citizen. He was the incoming national security advisor. But he wasn't sworn in yet. Yeah, but he was still the incoming national security advisor. He wasn't just like any other private citizen. When you go to, like, Subway and you get, like, a sub when it's opened again, or probably is, are you like, hey, you're the incoming national security advisor, a little bit more mayo. Thanks. A little bit, extra salami and some bell peppers, and you're the incoming national security advisor, right? You're gonna be, okay, you're gonna call an ambassador? No, it doesn't, no, that's not gonna happen. So, but you gotta understand, November is going to be so sweet. So sweet. November is going to be so amazing. November is going to be so amazing because it's 4th and goal, and they're giving the ball to Jerry Nadler, and he's not going to. Yeah, you got to jump up the middle, or at least generate some kind of power. They think Jerry Nadler is Tony Dorsett. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. You have Kamala Harris, and then you have Amy Klobuchar, and Democrats. Their whole shtick is that we're prosecutors, but we're tough, but we're loving. We're loving prosecutors. We're tough like the Republicans, but we're loving like the Democrats. That's why Madam Secretary loves Max Boot and Bill Kristol, so she could say, well, you know what? Trump is mean, but I'm tough, like the Bush-era Republicans. They go back and forth with their dumb, with their whole, charade. Why, Thin Man, thank you. Nice work. Really enjoy your channels. Thank you so very much. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Why, Thin Man, thank you so very, very much. Thank you so very, very, very much. Greatly appreciated. Why, Thin Man, thank you. Thank you. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Why, Thin Man, thank you. Hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Why, Thin Man, thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciated. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you. It's interesting because the Democratic Party right now is dissolving, and they don't realize what's going on. They don't realize what's going on. Yeah, and then you have Chicago mayor insulting Trump, but I don't even want to get into these like Democrat run. These issues prevail whether it's Democrat or Republican places, but they seem to be worse in Democratic run places. So they seem to be worse. And it's Democrats demanding allegiance and loyalty. That's what, like, Democrats always demand loyalty and allegiance. And it's just, it's just unbelievable. If you're on the left and you're linked in any way to the Democratic Party. Like, you could say you don't like the Democratic Party, but then, because in my view, President Trump is infinitely better when you talk about prison reform legislation, signing the First Step Act. You take away Trump's tweets that, make liberals and left-leaning people livid. You have these Democrats who demand loyalty. And you have Minnesota that hasn't voted Republican since 1972. And look what happened in Minneapolis. This same thing happened in New York. And these are all Democratic Party machines. Absolute machines. But, ladies and gentlemen, they pretty much have nothing. They pretty much have nothing now. It's kind of funny too, because not funny, it's horrible. But Democrats, they're finding some way to flip this on Trump, all of this, and they can't do it. They can't do it because they're probably, I think that they're worried. I think that they're worried about what Trump would do if they try to blame him directly for all of this. So, notice, this is interesting. Have you noticed that they're not trying to blame Trump for what took place? White Thin Man, thank you. Dean Diefendorf. AG Bar, we need action now. Taking way too long. I agree with you on that. Dean, I agree with you on that. But I don't think anything's going to happen during the election year. During this election, I don't think anything's going to happen, unfortunately. Dean Diefendorf, thank you. White Thin Man, thank you. I think during the election year, I don't think during an election year anything's going to happen. Just because Democrats, it's not fair. It's not fair. That's not fair. You're trying to steal the election. You're trying to steal the election. How dare you? You look at what's going on, especially on Twitter, and it's like this all falls back on Democrats. It's an American thing. It goes beyond Democrat or Republican. It does. But this all falls back on Democrats. And Van Jones said it perfectly today. The interesting thing, too, is also, like, they're so into telling the truth, and yet they never tell the truth. They've lied all throughout Trump-Russia. Every tweet was a lie. They made categorical claims. A categorical claim has nothing to do with confidence levels. It has nothing to do with appealing to an authority figure. You have to have a fact to back it up. That's why they didn't indict Trump, or that's why they didn't impeach Trump on any specific crime. So this is and it's horrendous what's taking place, but you ask yourself, well, who is supposed to who demands allegiance and loyalty to a political party, and who's done very little for voters? Democrats say we'll protect, we'll do everything for you, and they don't do anything. This is happening in the epicenter of all of this is in a Democratic-run city. I can't stress that enough. But to Democrats, it'll be like, oh, they won't care. They won't even get it. They won't even get it. Ladies and gentlemen, you need, and I agree with you, Dean and Whitenman, thank you so very, very much. Greatly appreciated. Dean, I agree with you. I just think that you need, I want William Barr and John Durham, and now Bash, I believe his name is, the special prosecutor for the Michael Flynn case, to uncover the Michael Flynn case. I want a lot to take place soon, immediately, but see, this is the mentality, though, that's like typical left. This is why nothing ever gets done by the left. So Tommy Loren writes, how does destroying a community bring justice? And then somebody wrote, I don't know, but they tried peacefully, and y'all had and you had a problem with that too. What? So then this is why Twitter is so. This is why Twitter will not be influential in the coming years. There was no that back and forth. There's no logic there. I mean, the first question there's the first question that actually is actually a question. There's logic to it, and you can answer it from a logical perspective. But then the answer is like completely just a Twitter answer. But again, Twitter's supposed to be a liberal platform, but now now all eyes are on the Democratic machines that allowed this to take place. See, if this happened and it's happened obviously in the past, but if this happened in 2020 in Alabama or Mississippi or Arkansas, and of course it's happened in the past, but I'm saying in 2020 if it happened, or in 2015, it's happening now in 2020 in Democratic strongholds that are demanding complete loyalty. So you tell me if there's going to be voter turnout. I mean, the only chance they have is Hillary Clinton. She's waiting. She'll be the nominee. Biden's not going to be the nominee. Biden is no. So, Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. I'm going to call it a little bit of a tiny bit earlier this evening. Stay safe, people. God bless you. Luke St. Martin, Eric H526, thank you so very, very much. Yeah, Luke St. Martin, I saw that. Great quote from Van Jones. Be safe, everyone. God bless you. I will see you tomorrow morning. Check out H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. And I don't want to turn this into a Democrat-Republican thing, but you better believe if this took place in a Republican stronghold, they would make it the biggest political issue on the planet. Give me your thoughts below. Thanks, everybody. White Thin Man, Dean Diefendorf, Florida Man Bear. I didn't see that. Carry on, fat. Florida Man Bear, you are the man. You are the man, Bear. You are the man, Florida Man Bear. Thank you. Thank you. You the man, Florida Man Bear. Thank you so very much. Thank you as always. I'll see you tomorrow morning, everyone. God bless. Stay safe. God bless you. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you. And check out... by the way, people, I changed Bizarro World Goodman. I have to tell you this. So I've changed Bizarro World Goodman to fact-checking Dem tweets with H.A. Goodman. So once the channel is completely changed, because it takes a couple of days to change the name completely, I'll start fact-checking Democratic tweets every single day. And it'll be liberal, Hollywood tweets, everything. So, everyone, thank you. Florida Man Bear, thank you. Dean Diefendorf, thank you. White Thin Man, thank you. Thanks, everybody. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow, everyone. And subscribe to what the formerly used to be Bizarro World Goodman. And if you click on the link, you'll see the new name change and H.A. Goodman's other channel. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow. Webby, thank you. Thank you, Webby. Thank you.